we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. The Pittsburgh Steelers had a really, really interesting year. They came in the record of 10-7. They were a little bit slow offensively. They actually had 243 passing yards per game, which was tied for seventh in the league. They had 98 rushing yards a game, which is kind of low for the Pittsburgh Steelers style, which was 17th in the league. Points for was 22.5, which is 14th. Points against, which was 21 even. The Pittsburgh Steelers is always all about that defense. They locked up T.J. Watt, so he's going to be there for a little while longer. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Cam Hayward. Seems like he's having some issues with them, and he's been a leader for them for a while. He seems like a type of guy that thinks he's super loyal to Pittsburgh, so I think he's going to come back, but they need to figure that out with them. What's your thoughts on Pittsburgh, man? We got Aaron Rodgers coming to town. What's your thoughts?
Before I get my thoughts, let me see what Rob said here. Doing well. I'm back in the Ravens and the Jaguars. Ooh, a boy said I'm back in the Jaguars. Okay. Dude, I like the Steelers, man, especially their defense, man. You know, they're always a defensive-minded team. I don't think that's going to change until Thompson retires. I think it's always going to remain like that. They added Jalen Ramsey. They added Darius Slay. Their secondary is going to be probably top 5 next to the Ravens, honestly, in the league. They still got Patrick Quinn, like you said. They gave an extension to T.J. Watt. Cameron Hayward is still there as well. So their defense is going to be legit, man. It's going to be a tough team to beat, to put points on. Now, when it comes to their offense, they did make some additions to it. DK Metcalf, obviously, he's a big-time wide receiver one, a big wide receiver that can go up there and just snatch the ball out of anybody, any corners or safety's hands. I think the spotlight is going to be on Aaron Rodgers, right? And I think it's going to be better than what it was with the Jets because the Steelers actually have an offensive line. They actually have an offensive line compared to the New York Jets. Not saying that they have the best offensive line or even like the top 10, but they have a better offensive line than the New York Jets. So there's going to be more time for Aaron Rodgers to do what he does. Obviously, he's on the end of his career. He even said it. He's there. He wants to win, and he wants to mentor as well. You got Will Howard as third string right now, but he'll probably be the starter next year after Aaron Rodgers leaves. He'll learn a lot from Aaron Rodgers, and I think, it'll be setting up for the future. But right now, Rodgers is the main man. He got the spotlight all him, and if that O-line can protect, he can get the ball to DK Metcalf. He could get the ball to Robert Woods. He could get the ball to Scotty Miller, Roman Wilson. They got some receivers there too. Not top-notch, but they're pretty good. I would say above the pack out of all the other receivers when it comes to the half part of the NFL league and their receivers and stuff like that. But I think their offense is going to be what they really need to focus on because when it comes to their defense, I think they got to solidify. When it comes to their offense, they got to get that chemistry going and they got to work out the kinks to try to get some wins.
Yeah, man, I actually like their tight end room as well. Pat Freiermuth is really good, and I think it's a move that they made along with getting Jalen Ramsey was getting Jonnu Smith. And if you remember back when Jonnu Smith played with Atlanta, he was with Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator out there, and he loved him. He was using him so much more than he was using Kyle Pitts, and I know most fantasy players were all pissed off about that. But yeah, I think Pittsburgh is going to be an interesting team. I still think that Mike Tomlin's record of never having a losing season is going to continue. I think that this division is going to be a difficult division. The AFC North is always one of the hardest divisions in football. They play hard-nosed football. Even going down to Cleveland, Cleveland always plays against these teams really well. They may not play against anybody else really well in the league for the most part, but for some reason they play well against the AFC North. I think Pittsburgh has a interesting choice, or an interesting team because, like we were talking about Aaron Rodgers. Yes, he is in the twilight of his career. He's headed. This is pretty much the last season. We'll see. I think if he has a pretty good season, I could see him coming back for one more ride, just because it's so hard to hang up the cleats whenever you have a decent team around him. I'm really interested to see how the DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers connection goes because if Aaron Rodgers trusts him, he's one of the biggest receivers he's probably ever really had in his career, really, and just the physicalness of DK Metcalf matched with Aaron Rodgers still being able to throw the ball. Even towards the end of the Jets tender that he had there, it just didn't. He was actually playing pretty decent ball. Devontae Adams was coming along. He brought his boy over, Devontae, and they was making some really good connections. Let's see if he's able to come in there and get that connection going with DK Metcalf. Aaron Rodgers did also show up to training camp. Seems like he has a different attitude than he did in the entire time he was with the Jets. It seems like he understands that this is the end, and he respects the hell out of Mike Tomlin. He's made that very clear, so I don't see any kind of Aaron Rodgers trying to be the slight GM and all this other stuff at the same time that was going on in New York. I just don't think New York, that the Jets thing was just a bad taste. It didn't work out for, I don't think, any of them in there, especially after losing him for that whole season. But I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Pittsburgh's able to do. I think that they're going to be, just like they always are, fighting for playoff position. Whether or not they're actually going to make some noise as a deep postseason run, that's a TBD, and we'll see how that goes later on. But yeah, Pittsburgh's going to be definitely an interesting team.